I literally have to Google how to pronounce this word. Oh hey, my name is Nadia and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have not been able to open a social media app without seeing Emily's salmon bowl recipe, which I'll try and link somewhere here. So I figured it was time to try it. And then I realized I know nothing about salmon. How do you buy salmon? How do you know what type of salmon to buy? How do you cook it? How do you know if it's cooked? There's just so many questions that we need to answer. Enter Nadia. I did my research and I think I was able to answer most of those questions. So on that note, let's get cooking. To start off, we have the Oncorhynchus, very difficult word to say, which is the scientific name for a group of fish in the Salmonidae family. I hope I said that right. I had to Google all these terms before I started filming. Then within that family, we have the Pacific salmon, which then branches off into 7 different types of salmon, which we're gonna get into right now. First up, we have the king salmon, which is kind of like the Rolls-Royce of salmons. It's super rich and buttery in flavor and usually grows to be about 40 pounds. Next, we have the sockeye salmon, which is usually recognized by its bright red flesh. It's a lot leaner, it's a lot cheaper than the king salmon. Third on the list, we have coho salmon, which has a medium fat content, subtle flavor, and is usually about 23 pounds, which makes it really good for cooking, and apparently it also freezes really well. Then we have what I'm gonna call the runt of the family, pink salmon. Pink salmon is really fragile, it's mild in flavor, it doesn't age or freeze well, but it is super pink, so it has something going for it. I feel like they named it after its one good attribute. You might think that because this salmon doesn't have a whole lot going for it, you wouldn't really find it in the stores, but you would be wrong. You can find pink salmon in cans, and I'm gonna check my notes because according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, in 2017, US fishermen brought in 495 million pounds of pink salmon, which is more than any other fish. That's wild. The 5th child in our salmon family is chum salmon, also known as dogfish or keda. Or keda? Keda? This salmon has a very low fat content, which makes it great for smoking, and it's also prized for its roe, which I learned today is another word for caviar. Then we have Atlantic salmon, which I didn't know until I started researching for this video, but you can't buy Atlantic salmon in stores anymore. But how is that possible? I see it all the time. Well, that's because if you're seeing Atlantic salmon on a menu or in the store, it's farm raised. Real Atlantic salmon has actually been endangered since 2000, which is why when you do see it for purchase, it'll almost always say farmed. Salmon farming has gotten a lot of hate over the years because people question the use of antibiotics, the pollution that it causes, as well as the lack of diversity in the fish. This is something I never really paid attention to until I actually went to the store to go buy salmon for this video. I went to Costco and I saw that they had Atlantic salmon, and then underneath it very clearly said farmed, and that fish was $26.99 a kilo. And then they had Atlantic salmon farmed without the use of antibiotics, which was $29.99 a kilo. I personally went ahead and bought the cheaper salmon, but with all the information that I've given you, I'm gonna leave that decision up to you guys. There's plenty of fish in the sea. Or at the salmon farm. Really, it depends. And finally, in our salmon family, we have the steelhead salmon, which is kind of like an honorary member of the salmon family. Steelhead is interesting because it does technically fall under the category of Pacific salmon, which then falls under the category of Oncorhynchus. So it's like a little bit of a gray zone with this fish. Like salmon, it's born in freshwater, migrates to saltwater, and then goes back to freshwater to spawn. I've never had steelhead, but apparently it tastes a little bit more like rainbow trout than it does like actual salmon. Nonetheless, though, it's still part of the salmon family. They welcomed it with open fins. Now that you know all the different types of salmon, you can finally go to the store and buy yourself a salmon. But how in the world do you pick a salmon? They all look the same. Maybe that's because they're farmed. I, for one, have been in this situation many times where my mom will send me to the store to go buy some salmon, and I just kind of pick whatever one looks half decent. I bring it home and she's like, "Did you pick the best looking one?" I always just say yes because honestly, I have no idea what the difference between a good salmon and a bad salmon is. I have no idea what I'm doing until this moment because I did my research. With that being said, there's a few things that you want to keep in mind when you go to buy your salmon. It's a fish, however, it should not smell fishy. A little fishy is okay, but an overwhelming stench is a red flag. Think ocean breeze instead. The salmon should also look moist and not have any brown spots on it. If you're buying a salmon that still has skin on it, it should not be curling up in any way, shape, or form, and it should also look moist and shiny. Think well hydrated and vibrant. Okay, so we bought our fish and now we have to prepare it. I bought a 1.2 kilogram Atlantic salmon from Costco that came out to $32.55, and let me tell you, it did not smell fishy at all. I took it out of the packaging and gave it a good rinse, and I literally put my nose as close to the fish as I possibly could, and only then did it give me a little bit of a fishy vibe. But again, ocean breeze, not overwhelming fish stench. There's a difference. Once I washed it, I placed it on a tray lined with paper towel, patted it dry, and then set it to the side. Next, I went ahead and prepared what I'm going to call the dressing. This consists of chopped parsley, crushed garlic, salt, and some olive oil. This is my mom's recipe, so I actually don't have too many measurements. It's all kind of by hand, by eye, measuring with your heart. So if you like parsley, go ahead and add all the parsley. If you don't like parsley, this video probably isn't for you, but thank you for being here. On rare occasions, my mom will add dill to this dressing. I, however, cannot stand dill. So if she knows I'm gonna be eating it, she doesn't even, like, we don't even have dill in our house, I'm pretty sure. It's just, I can't do dill. But if you're someone that likes dill, by all means, go right ahead. Just don't invite me over for dinner, please. And that's really it. You're just gonna mix it together and we can get back to the salmon. Now that it's dry, on both sides of the salmon, we're gonna sprinkle a little bit of salt, a whole lot of pepper, squeeze a whole lemon on each side, remember, and kind of rub that in a little bit. And you'll also see there's a little bit of steam coming from the lemons. That's just because I like to warm them up in the microwave to get those juices flowing. It makes things a lot easier. Once you have the salt, pepper, and lemon, you can go ahead and add half the parsley mixture to each side of the salmon. Before you put it in the oven, make sure the side that was originally on the bottom is still on the bottom. So if you got your salmon like this in the packaging, don't bake it like this. There's no right and wrong because there's no really like top and bottom, but you'll see like the bottom of the salmon is going to be a little bit flatter if it came in a package. That's really all the information I have for you on that. Sorry. Then just add a few dollops of butter and double check if there are any really thin parts to your salmon. Usually around the tail or sometimes around the edges, they can get a little thinner than the middle part, so you can just tuck those in and that way you'll have a more even cooking time. Then you're just going to throw it in the oven at 425 for no more than 15 minutes. My mom usually checks it at the 8-minute mark and adjusts the time based on that, but in our oven, 15 minutes is usually the max. How do you know your salmon is done, you ask? Well, I think the easiest way to check anything like that is just to use a thermometer. So find the thickest part of your salmon, insert the thermometer, and when it hits 145 and holds 145, then it's good to go. You can also poke it with the fork and see how flaky it is, but I think the thermometer is just the easiest and safest way to go. Now is the time where I usually do a taste test. However, we don't have any salmon left. We ate it all, which should be a good thing because it means that it was so good that there's none left. So there you go. I really like this recipe though. It was super simple. The preparation takes like 10 minutes, not even, and then you cook it for 15. So it's a very quick, very easy last minute dinner idea. And I mean, you usually get a really big salmon. We bought a 1.2 kilogram one. It was done in like seconds. So you can feed a lot of people or you can feed yourself for a few days. There's a lot of different side dishes that you can also pair with salmon, and there's also a lot of different ways that you can prepare your salmon. This is my mom's go-to that we have just grown to love, so I thought I would share it with you guys. And again, you can adjust the ingredients to any way you like. So if you do want to add dill, I guess you can go ahead, or if you want to add more parsley or different spices, the world is your oyster. I'm going to stick on the theme of seafood puns. Not that that was that funny, but anyway. That's all from me this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you learned something as well. While I was researching, I definitely learned a lot about salmon and I kind of tried to summarize it all into one short video. There's definitely so much more information out there, but this is just a little taste, a little way to dip your toes in, if you will. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next Friday. Bye!
Oncorhynchus.
Oncorhynchus. Oncorhynchus. That's a really tough word. Okay. Get my notes ready. Yes, I know I have no space on my laptop. You don't need to keep reminding me. My hair is also kind of blending into the back right now. I don't often wear my hair down, but here we are. The fifth child in our salmon family is, I don't even know, chum salmon. Okay. Back to freshwater to spawn. Spawn? Spawn. Spawn. To have babies. Spawn. There's no R. Okay. Send me to the store. Okay. On the pan like this, that didn't make any sense, so I'm gonna say it again. And again, you can adjust the, and again, you can adjust the, and again, you can adjust, and again, you can adjust. Okay. say it a couple times, maybe it'll stick. So to start off, we have the